So do you up here all the time, or do you go back to Jackson?
I live in Jackson.
He said he ready,
but I spend a lot of time in our DC.
He said he ready. He said he ready.
Every county.
All right, y'all. Good afternoon, beautiful black people. I'm CJ Lawrence, CEO of Black with No Chaser, and we're back at the CBC ALC conference. And I'm here with my co-founder, Tyson Jackson, and national president of the NAACP, and one of our mentors, Mr. Derrick Johnson.
Good evening. Afternoon, or what time is it?
Hey, man, I don't know if it's afternoon or evening, Derrick.
That's right. Yeah.
and also correspondent, Miss Kelly Bethea.
Hey.
So, Derrick, we're glad to have you here, man. This afternoon, I'm gonna let Tyson start it out, man. You wanna start it off?
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor just to be sitting and have you on a podcast, especially at this moment. I started my CBC journey coming out of your office and being here and just being in this place now with you and all the things going on. I really want to dive in and check what you on. I always get my pulse of what's happening and where we're moving from you, so I understand that you have kind of some insight on that. Just want to start a conversation with you, talk about it.
I thought you was going to say you started your journey when you was driving me in Alabama. You had no damn license. And well, come on, let's go ahead. Let's get
started. Okay.
Let's get to it then.
All right.
So Derrick, honestly, like, what would be like maybe some of the top 5 issues right now that you're focusing in on with the NAACP?
Well, we started at the top of the year focusing on the election next year, 2024. There's nothing more important than the outcome of the November 2024 election. It's the difference between having a white supremacist in the White House and opportunity to look forward. Quite frankly, the concept of democracy is on the table, and for black folks, we got to fix it. It may not work like we want it, but if we don't have it, what does that mean for us? So at the end of the day, we have to prepare now for next year's election.
Right on. That sounds like a plan. Kelly?
Sure. So we just saw each other in a meeting maybe an hour or so ago,
right.
And the entire concept of that meeting was about uplifting and rebuilding black wealth in this country. And I felt like, for those who are Hamilton fans, I was in the room where it happens. And you had people, I'm not going to say names, but we had billionaires, celebrities, journalists, people who are essentially the creme de la creme, yourself included, of black excellence. Can you talk a little bit about some of the talking points in that meeting and where we go from here as far as building black wealth in this country?
I want to commend Chairman of the CBC, Stephen Host, for putting that meeting together. If you take a look at our opposition, it's a military strategy called flooding the zone, that you throw everything against the wall in hopes that individuals are unable to respond to anything because they're chasing everything. And so part of the point I was making in the room is, if that's the strategy, we need to pick some clear targets and aggressively defend and advance those targets and not allow the strategy of flooding the zone to distract us. Think about it. 6 months ago, we were talking about critical race theory.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about book banning. Now they're going to continue to just throw stuff on the wall. And the reason why that's taking place is because we're winning. That we're actually succeeding, although as a community and as a culture, we are oftentimes talking from a deficit mindset about what we don't have, what we're not doing, what they're doing to us. But they would not be fighting so hard if we were not making as many advancements that we're making.
I agree with that. Derrick, the NAACP has really been strong in the legal arena lately,
Yes.
with a lot of the lawsuits that have been brought forth. Can you talk a little bit maybe about what's happening in the Mississippi fight, what's happening across the country and some of the fights as it relates to voters' rights and redistricting and some of those things?
You think about redistricting. Supreme Court handed out a decision in an Alabama case, that was our case, that Alabama had a density of population to draw 2 opportunity districts. What we see in the response is Alabama is responding as if it was 1954 Brown decision of resisting, not complying with a court order. That's a strategy of nullification. That, when the Supreme Court hands out a ruling and the governing entities say we're not going to follow it, they seeking to nullify. If you think about what's taking place in Florida with the removal of district attorneys, or in Tennessee, Justin and Justin being removed, or what they're seeking to do now in North Carolina, we're removing Anita Earls from the Supreme Court. That's about subverting democracy and nullifying the will of voters who voted for individuals, and now they want to remove duly elected individuals from office. In Jackson, Mississippi, we sued the state to block them from taking the system, filed Article 6 a complaint with EPA so they cannot get money from the federal government and divert away from the city of Jackson. City of Jackson is like most cities across the country, aging infrastructure, and intentionally being starved by the state. Over the last 25 years, the state of Mississippi is broke. It's a poverty state.
Right.
They're living off federal dollars. They receive money from the Clean Water Act that they're supposed to reallocate to other jurisdictions, but they've written the reg or the requirements so tight that Jackson has only received money from EPA funding 3 out of 25 years. So that's intentionality in starving the system. Fortunately, with Congressman Thompson, his standing, we were able to put money in a bill last year, in an omnibus bill, over $600 million to send to Jackson to stabilize the system. Now clean water's been delivered, but there's so much more work to be done. All of this is a coordinated strategy to prevent progress, because at the end of the day, the demographic trends are what they are, and we're looking at the most diverse country than we've ever had in the history of this country, and people are now beginning to understand their power, and they want a piece of the opportunity.
That makes perfect sense, actually. We want to speak to the millennial demographic and the Gen Z demographic in particular about the issues that matter, like what you're speaking to us about now. What are ways that platforms like Black with No Chaser can ensure that we are delivering in a manner that allows what the work that's being done to not be invisible?
It's absolutely important to talk about what's possible, what we're doing, and how individuals under 40 actually matter. It is the largest and fastest growing segment in our community. The reason why our staff composition has shifted, where majority of our staff is under 40, is because that's the trend of the average age of Black folks is mid-30s. Yeah. So as an organization, we got to reflect that. But in reflecting that, understanding that we actually have power.
Yeah.
That it is not enough to talk about the history. It's not enough to talk about why this election is the most important election. It is absolutely crucial that individuals own their power. As a result of that age demographic going out in 2020, we've been able to change the regs around student loans, where over 800,000 individuals have had their loans completely wiped out because they've had it over 20 years. Another 750,000 people have had their loans completely wiped out under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Those are tangible things that equate tens of billions of dollars as a result of the vote. Our vote is our power. No one is going to give you power. We got to take it, and you only take it in a democracy at the polling place.
That's right. That's right. T-Rock?
No, I'm just even in thinking about from a power standpoint with young people getting involved, even if we're talking about where we're not in an election year, we're not moving into this part, what can young folks do? When I say young folks now because I'm older, what can they do on a day-to-day basis to make changes in their community?
Be engaged from the perch you stand on. In some communities, it may be about environmental justice. Other communities may be about education. Other communities, it may be access to capital. But regardless of what it is, be engaged. For some young people, they may see their vehicle of voice to be a local community group. Some others may see NAACP or NAN. Whatever you do, be engaged. The beautiful thing about us being Tougaloo graduate HBCU, when I was there, and unfortunately he had died before y'all left, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture will come every year. And what he will say is, no matter what you do, organize, organize, organize. With Chokwe Lumumba, right behind it, he say, whatever you do, self-determination is the goal. Yeah. The question for our young people, if we organize, and we don't have time for us versus us paradigm. Right. My group is better than yours. I'm taller than you and all that foolish shit. If we're actually talking about self-determination, we need to identify what mechanism can I individually work on collective with others, whether it's one of the other issue areas, but at the end of the day, we got to organize towards self-determination. And in a democracy, understanding that the levers are powerful. You can't walk away from how power is determined and say it ain't working. You have to lead into it to make it work if it ain't and fix it if it's broke.
Yes, indeed.
But speaking about organizing,
okay.
And it's with, I don't know, great sympathy even to ask, because I learned organizing in your office, working there when Brother Hollis Walker Muhammad came and sat down with me and told me to take out my pen and paper, and I'm going to show you what organizing is.
Yep.
I still have those notes to this day. Can you talk about a little bit about that powerful man and everything that he's done, just even from your perspective, and just give honor to him?
You know, Hollis Watkins is a one of the unknown treasures. The concept of Freedom School was a result of him and Curtis Hayes, later known as Curtis Muhammad, walking out of their school and say, we don't want any more of this segregation education. We're going to create our own Freedom School under a tree. That was in 1958. They were 17 years old. He left from there because, of course, they got kicked out of the school. Brenda Travis had to go abroad, and he and Curtis, they ended up at Tougaloo where they met Bob Moses and began to organize the students in Mississippi under the banner of Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Lawrence Guillot and so many others. Marion Berry had come down there. Stokely Carmichael, he came down with Cortland Cox. That was the thrust of the student movement of that day. Hollis was the mainstay where many people had to flee the country. Hollis left for a month and came back and said, I can't leave my people, and he stayed. He's actually the reason why I didn't go back to Detroit. When I left Tougaloo, he said, what you gonna do? I said, I'm gonna come and work in DC. He said, why don't you come work for me? I said, how much you paying? That's how I ended up back in Mississippi. I mean, a jewel, but the beautiful thing about Hollis, he was a master organizer.
Yeah.
And he was the person who taught me that organizational supremacy cannot work in the Black community.
Yes.
We have to meet people where they are. And secondly, an organizer is not the person in front of the room, it's the person behind, in the back of the room, pushing local leadership forward, because any community you're working in, you got to leave and they got to live with the outcome. So we got to build local leadership. And as a result of building local leadership, we approach it not from an egocentric, but a community-centric strategy that's inclusive of everybody's power.
I want to say this, Derrick, before you leave. Back in 2013, you organized us in a lot of ways. You organized the Mississippi Black Leadership Institute at that time, and we were invited to be some of the first individuals for the inaugural class for the Mississippi Black Leadership Institute. Born out of the challenges that you issued to us was what you see before you today. And that's Black with No Chaser. And at that time, you weren't the national president of the NAACP, and now you are. And you're doing an amazing job at that. But I think it's beautiful to see how you organizing us has come full circle.
You know, it's amazing. I commend you all for setting this up and continue the mission. The goal of the Institute is replenishing the progressive Black infrastructure in Mississippi, but it has national impact. It is still going. I just brought in the new class, a 9-month program. 8 of the 9 months, you have to consume a book. The goal is not to brainwash, but make sure we have a common platform of knowledge we're operating from, understanding that our community interests should always be before individual interests, in a way in which if we perfect community interests, our individual interests will be met. The beautiful thing about replenishing that network, people come in and say, wow, how do y'all do this? We do it because none of us own positions that we get elected to. Titles will not and has never defined one's leadership ability. It means you won a popularity contest. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you love the people, you're working for the people, or you're effective at what you do. And so the Institute was built on that premise, much of which I learned from Hollis. You know, Congressman Thompson had the concept, Hollis was the driving force, and it's funny because Hollis was one of Congressman Thompson's mentor along with Henry Kirksey. We are a part of a continuum of leadership. And the beautiful thing about recognizing that we're part of a continuum is not about us individually, it's about the collective whole to fight for self-determination.
Man, we really appreciate you taking the time. We know you're a busy man these days, so we want to say thank you to you, man. It's good to see you.
I appreciate it.
I'm sure we'll holler at you again.
We'll be around. That's right.
All right, brother.
All right, bro. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
I mean, you done asked many questions.
I asked you one.
Only one. See that? Okay, let them take your question now.
I mean, this is their show. Y'all.
She ran the last interview.
Yeah,
Get them bones out.
We told
I'm usually not on there. I just sit down for this.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. We good?
Yeah, we good, man.
Right.
On to the next one.
All right.
We got you.